You know, I don't like to call it role model. There are certain people I've learned from. I working for Central Park Media over the years as a producer. I employed many directors and got to see a wide variety of styles. So I guess I'm sure I brought a few things to the table myself, but otherwise I sort of adapted little things for people. Tony Salerno was a director he worked on a lot of stuff for me. He ended up working for 4 Kids. He directed some of the things that I think are the greatest stuff that I worked on in any capacity now and then here. And the ping pong club.
Yeah.
God, really fun. So there's certain things that I picked up from him, and also Eric Stewart, who worked for 4 Kids for many years, and he was a model of efficiency, which depending on the project, sometimes it can become extremely important, and also being efficient helps get you work. Yeah. So I learned a lot from him too.
What about Green?
He's great. He's a buddy, and I have certainly learned some from working with him too. But I mean, I was directing long before he was. You know what I mean? So, but any new person that you work with, who's good, you can totally pick things up from, and I'm not shy about stealing either trips.
In fact, that's something I want to talk about. But for me, I would have to say absolutely Matt Greenfield and Scott McLennan. Scott was my mentor producer when I started directing. Both of them were incredibly prepared. You couldn't ask them a question about a show that they couldn't answer. They did their homework, they did their prep, and as an actor, I appreciate that, and as a director, I feel it's necessary. Charlie Campbell and Kyle Jones, while getting the work done, they kept the atmosphere in the studio light, and even if you were working on something very heavy, the atmosphere was always up, and it was never a drudge to go and work with them. Certainly Chris Bevins, who I respect immensely, J. Michael Tatum and Ian Sinclair, both of my adore working with. I don't know so much role model. Probably Matt is my biggest role model, but you certainly learn a lot from the people you work with, for me.
Yeah, my big ones were, and most of you don't know him, but he directed on Digimon, he directed me in Bobo, I mentioned him several times, Michael Storage.
I've heard of him.
Because he has such a wonderful sense of fun in the studio. He creates a real atmosphere of playtime. Richard Epcar, I learned a lot from him because he's one of the best at rewriting on the fly, and it's important to be adaptable in the studio because even if you get the best adaptation in the world, different actors have different rhythms than the writer had. So you've got to be able to say, okay, that's not working, go with this line. And you've got to be able to come up with it really quick on the fly, otherwise you're burning money. And the last one is Mary Elizabeth. And again, from her I learned Mary comes in just ridiculously prepared, knowing she knows Naruto inside, outside, upside down. She comes in, she gives you way more information than you could possibly ever need as an actor. So the 3 of them were pretty much what molded me. But let me add to the question. I also learned a lot from bad directors.
Yes.
You learn what not to do.
Absolutely.
And as an actor, I had a director once, and the direction I got from her was, okay, yeah, that's good. Go meaner. And I delivered the line again. She said, meaner. And okay, and I did it again. She said, no, I want it meaner. And as an actor, she wasn't getting the idea as the director that her message was not getting through to me as an actor. As a director, you've got to say, okay, that's not getting through. I'm not getting across what I want, and you have to take a different, a different angle at it and go, okay, so meaner's not working, so let me describe it in a different way. Okay, that's not working. Let me describe it in a different way. And you have to, as a director, you have to stay flexible and constantly be able to attack a problem from different angles. And so you learn things from all directors.
Absolutely.
this would be Mike McFarland.
Yes.
Because when I started training, he was the first director that I trained with, and then ultimately he became my boss, and he was the producer, and so I kind of had his standard to live up to. It was a very, very high standard, which works for me because I'm a perfectionist myself. So it's definitely Mike in how precise he wants things to look, and everybody wants things to be precise, but with Mike it's something different. It's checking and double checking, even after, like when I'm directed by him, even after he gets the read that fits and that sounds good, and we both agree that it sounds good, he'll be like, wait a second, and we'll go back and listen to it in Japanese, and he'll go, that's not really their intent, do it again, do this. So that type of precision. And then as far as preparedness, I learned a lot from Chris Bevins, who was the first person to direct me in anything more than a big part. And just knowing that he knows everything, kind of like what Chris was mentioning about Matt Greenfield and what you mentioned about Mary Elizabeth, how important it is to not just know your show inside and out, but know everything that's kind of related to it. Like, they make this joke, and here's why that's funny in Japanese, and like, it takes a page to describe, like, all of that,
It's the difference. I've always said, I worked with the director one time who I said, okay, what's going on in this scene? And fortunately, this person is no longer working in the industry. He went back to advertising. But he said, I don't know, I've watched this series yet.
Yeah.
And he was 2 weeks in. Now, Matt, you'll deliver a line, and he'll say, it needs to be this way, and it will feel completely wrong. And as an actor, I'm like, okay, that feels weird, because I know it does, but in episode 13, this line is going to come back to haunt you, and unless it's said exactly this way, it's not going to, and it's like, oh, okay, well,
You got to do your research. Like a lot of times, we'll work on a series if we're lucky. They're a long series, they're ongoing. Yeah, as the director, you need to see everything you can. I remember getting into it with somebody when I was directing. The hell was that? Magical Don't Rain Me, which was a show that 4 kids did, and it's a cute little girly show. There were like a little over 200 episodes of it, okay? And I'm like, and we had the first 2 seasons or something like that, but I'm like, well, where's the rest of this? Because like, I want to, I need to know what's going on, because there were certain things with some of the characters. I'm like, this person's got something to hide. I know this person's got something to hide. I need to know what it is. Well, why do you need to know what it is? Just directing the damn thing. That's why. Because if this, especially, this actor needs to know everything that this character knows, and that it will very much influence the performance, And Utena, Revolutionary Girl Utena, and you see that?
Yeah.
That was a show, and that was a little before my time, but that was something where there's, I think it's like 39 episodes of Utena. It's basically like 3 major story arcs. And they did the first one, and then it sort of disappeared into licensing hell for years, and then they did the second and third. And when they did the first one, clearly they did not look ahead down the road. And unfortunately, I think some of the decisions that were made in the first 13 episodes weren't the greatest when you saw where it ended up going. And then they had to kind of make these midstream alterations, which were awkward at first, and then settled in. I mean, Utena overall is a very good show. It's a very good dub, but it would have been better if people had done the research. And
the other thing is, if you do your research, then you can choose to say, okay, you know what, this is the way it was done, but I think it's going to be more impactful to an audience if we do it this way. But you have to make a decision like that from an informed place. You can't just, we're going to do this way because I want to. That's not the job of being. I've always said that being an ADR writer, or ADR director or writer, is we are in some degrees creators, but more importantly, we're caretakers of someone else's creation. And you've got a job to look at what their intent was and what they wanted done, and to honor that first and foremost. You've got to. Right there.
2-part question. First is, you must have had some time in which you started the voice, and all of a sudden you say, it's not working, you're fired. The other one is that, what's it like working with a major star who's in the movies, or somebody that's very famous? versus,
Yeah. You.
Well, I mean, I've worked with the wrestlers, and they're, in their own sense, they're stars.
On what?
I've directed SmackDown versus Raw for the last 7 years. So, I've directed John Cena, Big Show, now, 99% of the time, the big stars are great. I directed Jeff Foxworthy in Are You Smarter Than the 5th Grader of the Game? And he couldn't have been more gracious, couldn't have been more charming, couldn't have been more professional. I was afraid that, I would give him a direction and he'd go, yeah, fine. But no, he took every direction I gave him. They're 99% of the time, they're stars for a reason. They're stars because they're really, really good. And most of the time, they just need a little bit of guidance and, again, information. You know the project, you just need to bring them up to speed, and then you wind them up and let them go. And most of them that I've worked with, I haven't worked with any tough ones. Samuel L. Jackson, I story Samuel L. Jackson, they're doing Samurai. Right, and he would do a take, and the engineer would say, oh, I got a noise on that, I need another one, and he'd go, no. That one was fine, we're going with that. So every once in a while we'll run into that, but...
I've had varying experiences with some people. Like in New York City, we have all like the Law and Order talent pool, who's there all the time. And, it's a rough shooting schedule for them. They're on call. When they're in a shooting cycle, they're on call 24/7 because they shoot in all sorts of odd locations at odd times. So, that makes them edgy sometimes when they might get a call at any moment that says, hey, like, come on, we gotta go, we have this location, you gotta move. It's 3:30 in the morning on Saturday, get out of your bed and go. But I worked with Chris Maloney. Anybody know who Christopher Maloney is? He's Law and Order SVU. And we actually did a National Lampoon comedy.
I know who that is.
And it was, and we're doing ADR, so we're replacing dialogue in the movie because, for whatever reason, because there was noise on the tape or because they were just rewriting stuff. And when he first gets in the booth, man, he's wearing like this purple tracksuit, head to toe, and all these gold chains. I mean, he was definitely like just goomba'd out. And he gets in there, and of course, this tracksuit's like making all this noise. And I could tell he was just like feeling kind of edgy and stuff because I think he wanted to be going to do something with his family, but he had to do this. And so he gets in the booth, and he also had directed this movie. So with that, I didn't really want to step on his toes because he is the director. But still, you want to make suggestions because, I feel like, my job is I'm going to help you get the best performance you can. So he gets in there, and the other thing is we're trying to sync with the picture. And when you're syncing with live action, you need to be right on for that to work. And he's sitting there, and he's just sort of, throwing out the line, he just kind of keeps saying it. And I'm like, trying to tell him, and suddenly he stops. He's like, what?
Oh my God.
And I'm like, okay, listen. I'm like, I think if you just do this, I think it might work better. And he's like, okay, fine. And he's doing it, whatever. So, and he was just not in a good mood. And then later on, I found that him and the producer guy who was sitting in the room with me hated each other. So then we have another actor come in who is someone who's like a voiceover pro, someone I worked with a lot. And she comes in, and we just lock right in. Because I work with her all the time. And she's laying down this stuff, and he's like, oh, I get it. Oh, this is great. Oh, I get it. Oh, awesome. Okay. And he's like suddenly like, oh, I'm like, yeah, asshole. But I've worked with some other people, like you said, for the most part, and that, I'm not saying that he was a bad guy. I think he was just, he was in a bad place and sort of brought that in with him. But then he chilled out, and this girl went in there and made him laugh, and then he was great. But like I've worked with Vincent D'Onofrio on something, and he was another guy, and there were like other actors who were new, and he like took time to work with them, and he was really great. And he's huge. It was whatever. Yeah, but he was such a sweet guy. And Andrew McCarthy, I worked on for something, and that guy, he was just like a pro, you know, came in there, and I'm not saying that he wasn't, you know, fun or anything, but I mean, he, you know, he came in and he was just on the mark. I mean, this guy laid down ADR matching picture, just perfect. And it's funny, it was him and Jonathan Silverman, who was the pairing from Weekend at Bernie's. And Silverman was one of those, he just couldn't stop cracking jokes. But they were really funny jokes, so it was okay. But yeah, a lot of people who have success in any business get success because they're not jerks, right? You know, that people do want to work with them, and they're professionals, you know? I mean, even though Chris Maloney was a little edgy and whoa that day, there's no way it was the first time you've done ADR, you know? Because when you're in a weekly TV series, every episode you're gonna have to replace something.
We've got a new person to introduce himself.
Yeah, wonderful Sinterniklaas, ladies and gentlemen. There it goes. Hello, my name is Michael Sinterniklaas. I am one of your directors now today to aid your cues. I own NYB Post for Bicoast Studio, and I directed for original animation and for ADR and some celebrity and some better than celebrity, and yeah, that's that. And actually, this week I'm directing Ayres, which is one of the Oscar-nominated Best Features of the year.
Sweet.
It's sort of undisclosed Hollywood talent, so I can't disclose.
So we got a hand over there.
Have any of you ever worked with Mark Handler, and what is your?
Yes, Mark Handler drove me to the airport. Yeah, you work with I work with Mark all the time, and he's a great guy. Great guy, very professional. You know, what is there anything bad you can say about Mark? I don't think there's anything bad you can say about Mark. He's the sweetest man. He's eminently capable of what he does, and he made frickin' Voltron. So, form blazing sword. He's a gentleman, and he has an interesting life. You know, he takes some time off and travels through Asia and just looks like a gentleman. Yeah. And he's super, super positive. Yeah. You know, and this business, I think, you know, it's exciting, but it can also be a little bit crushing. And he's just a super sweet, positive guy. And I think that's really, really inspiring. Mm-hmm. And one of his greater achievements.
Right over there.
I just want to know, what are the challenges of maybe directing a short anime series, like 13, maybe 26, as opposed to a longer running series?
So when you have less research.
Yeah. Well, then character development is something else where, you know, and honestly, with a long series, you know, you need to take your time, and sometimes that can be more of a challenge because sometimes you feel like you want to go to a place right away because you know you're going to end up there, but you gotta, you need to take your time.
Slow burn on a longer series.
Yeah, and a lot of that I think might even reflect in writing, more so. You know?
Yeah. It's you've got to be, and on a shorter series, especially as a writer, you've got to be more concise. You've got to, you know, you still want to tell the story in the fashion that they needed to, but you've got, I mean, Dreaming to Mary was 13 episodes, and we had to make every episode count. And we want to do that in a long series too, but shorter time, you've got less time to tell that story, so. Somebody else, I hate making people. I'm always one that gets assigned to do that, so thank you.
As directors, you have to watch the whole series and sometimes even watch the manga if it's anime. Do you find that as directors you have a greater appreciation for the shows than actors who don't direct?
I don't know. You can have a greater hatred for the shows too. I mean, you get into it on such a deeper level, and you're looking for different things than actors would. When you're an actor, in general, when you're an actor on a like an anime program that we've worked on, all you see is your lines. That's it. Now, it's not that you don't know anything else about the project, especially the directors doing the research. They'll fill you in on things, you know, but really,
You gotta give an actor context.
yeah, but really you're only seeing your little part of the thing. You know, I did a series that as an actor, Iki Tosin, and I played this Takatong guy who's got an eye patch, and you know, then, you know, and I did my part and we laid down whatever 13 episode season was, and then later on they're like, excuse me, can you go back in and fill in some incidentals, a couple of little bit parts? And here's all this stuff with like panties and boobs and jokes. And I'm like, what is this? I'm like, all my guy did was like sit and cry and get hurt and be, you know, I mean, because he was just, things weren't good for him. And I'm like, this show's funny. And they're like, yeah.
Happening on Soccer Diaries. I went in and you know, my character kept going, yeah, we're gonna go play baseball. Hey, yeah, let's go play baseball. Let's go play baseball. And I sat down with the other actors to do a commentary. And I had assumed it was about kids in high school and baseball and taking tests, because that's all we had done. And no, the cousins were in love with each other, and it was, and so I sat down to do this commentary not knowing anything about it. And I was like, what is going on? And literally the entire commentary for Soccer Diaries is me freaking out. So.
Yeah, but you know, but again, like to answer the important question, you have to ask the director. I mean, you will often find little nuanced things that you can kind of latch onto, or things that you really enjoy in a series, because you are working on the series when you're a director, whereas when you're an actor, you're often working on the character. You know what I mean? But being that you have more responsibility, if you have horrible deadlines and things like that, you will also like want to shoot yourself when you see the program shows.
The real drawback that I found, I don't know where any of the rest of you feel this way, but like, I tend to be one of the directors at Sentai that is willing to work a 12-hour shift with a 1-hour meal break. I'll burn through 3 engineers a day. I mean, I love working so much. But when I spend 11 hours watching nothing but anime, as much as I enjoy anime and as much as I love it, when I go home, if an animated commercial comes on, I get up and leave the room. I find myself really unable to watch all that stuff. Now, if Mike were to call and say, hey, I've got this that I've done, it's going to be on tonight, watch it. When when they first did Brotherhood, and Maxie first appeared, Mike was like, hey, we've got this girl I'd really love for you to check out. Of course I will. But if it's on my own, I'm keeping it on the Science Channel. Or something like that.
There's also the danger of watching too many things that have been dubbed and localized, and then getting all kinds of strange sentence structure stuck in your head and thinking, oh, that's what people say, what the, right? I mean,
I don't know.
I started saying what the.
But I like hate the what the thing.
Yeah.
But my kids will say it.
Yeah.
You know, they do, really. And my kids are also not thinking like what the F, because that's one of the reasons why on TV networks, for children's programming, don't want you to say what the, because they think it suggests what the fuck.
Morning. Happy Easter.
Most of you are adults, if not all of you, so you can hear that. But like, I know that my kids aren't going there. I don't think, maybe they are, I don't know. But they do say that, which is weird, because I'm always like, nobody actually says this, but I guess no one over the age of 9.
I think that definitely actors who are directors, I think we do have a greater appreciation for it. To go back to what your specific question was, because we understand how much it takes to make it really happen. When you're just acting, I don't want to say just, like acting isn't something important. It is. But you go in and you don't even have to react off of other people. It's a different kind of acting job entirely. So I feel that I do have a greater appreciation, at least for the shows that I've worked on, because I know them inside and out.
Yep.
You know, there are some shows that I have been in that I know are great shows. I haven't even seen them all.
Yep.
And I don't know what so-and-so said to me in that scene. But yeah, I love the things that I've worked on.
Yeah, I've not worked on anything that I've not loved. Right there?
Me?
Oh, Tom, when you were casting the guest voice actors for Pokemon last year, did you have their previous roles or credits in mind?
Sometimes, you know, sometimes you'll see or hear something that an actor is in, and it'll stick in your head, and then a character, like, because in Pokemon, I mean, you know, there's only like 1 billion episodes and then 2 billion guest characters, so, you know, every now and then I'll see something and I'll be like, oh man, like, there was an episode where there was this whole, you know, precocious little annoying kid thing going on, and a guy had just sent me a thing that he had done, which was, it was almost like a little like radio play kind of thing, and that voice was on there, and it was really good, like that kind of character, and I'm like, oh, I'm totally using this guy for this. So, yeah, I mean, I'll take that stuff into account. I mean, that's the other thing is, you know, it's just casting. I'm trying to make sure that I'm going to get the best talent for the part. So every now and then, you know, I will, like, say, if I was working with Chris Ayres, and let's say Chris generally plays like angry guys. I know Chris is a good actor. I might do him against that type because I know he can pull it off.
I love
But
doing that with actors.
yeah, but I mean, but very often, especially when you have deadlines, you know, the whole typecasting thing, it happens for a reason. It's like, well, I need someone who's going to be really funny.
You can do this
Oh,
right
well, Erica Schroeder is really, really funny, so I know that I can just put her in there and she'll hit a home run. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you end up doing it that way. So, yeah.
Oh, and I have something for Michael, which won't be a secret for very long.
Oh, the secret. I was like, oh no, do you know one of my undisclosed future projects that I may not speak about under non-disclosure? No, it's Zellos, and everything's a secret. Shh. Thank you. That's very cool. Thanks very much.
How much
sorry.
involvement do you have with the music as the director?
It depends. Usually, I'd say that if the studio can afford to not just get the license to dub the music, but also to pay someone to adapt it, to pay an engineer to record it, a director to record it, a singer to sing it, another engineer to mix it, all of that. If they can afford that, then usually we'll try and do it. I personally like, as a director, and like, I love anime and I love songs in Japanese, but I think if you're gonna watch a show in English, why not make it English top to bottom? And make it words that you can sing along and actually know what you're saying. And it could just be because I'm a singer that I also enjoy that aspect of it. But whenever I could, on shows that I directed, I'd say let's dub the music. Absolutely. And especially music within the show. Because you know a lot of anime music is pivotal to it. You know, you sing to make the robot fly and all of that kind of
Do you
stuff.
work
Yeah.
Well, with Narama Daikon Brothers and Mermaid Melody, the songs are essential to the show.
That's
So both of those are musicals. So my first priority in casting was not just getting actors that could act the role, whose voices fit the character designs, but I had to have actors that could sing and sing their butts off and harmonize with each other. And so I had basically what you would do with the exception of a dance audition. I had a full-blown audition, which like you do for a musical. The actors had to come in, they had to sing, they had to read, you know. So yeah, I love working on musical projects, but I started as a director for musical theater and classical theater, so what's not to love?
Sometimes they don't want the music dubbed
Right.
because maybe that Japanese band actually has a following in the United States, or
And licensing with music is far more complicated than it is with the anime programs themselves.
yeah, and sometimes it may be a show where the song isn't even a song that's written for the show. It just happens to be like a Japanese pop song.
Yeah.
So that's going to be pretty much
Yeah.
impossible to get. Or it's an American pop song.
Yeah.
Like we just did not too long ago, Eaton of the East, that Michael hears in. And the opening is supposed to be an Oasis song.
Yeah.
And they were only able to afford to get it on our version for the first episode.
Yeah.
And then the rest they
Yeah.
some of
And
it.
you have to get rights from the performers, you have to get rights from the writers, who wrote the music, who wrote the lyrics, you know, whatever the labels are. I
That
mean,
becomes expensive.
music licensing is a mess.
Is
And
that the exec producer?
what's that?
The exec producer, the executive producer, or the producer has to do that licensing?
Oh, well, no, the licensing stuff, there'll be someone who does that, you know, lawyers and things like that. It's, that's where all the money is, which is why it's such a complicated thing. But yeah, and I think more often than not, that's why changes are or are not made with music because of that. We used to talk about, when I worked at Central Park Media, we used to talk about trying to either dub the music or put like a special feature on the DVD that used music from something, and there were things in the license that if you use the music for any purpose other than how it is used in the program, you know, that's illegal, you know, so if we wanted to do like a karaoke version, like a little sing-along thing, you know, they're like, no, because that breaks the license agreement. If you want to make a new agreement and pay X to do that, you know, so
The only way we got away with the karaoke type of thing with Merriman.com was, is it was during the episode. You could have it stream with the karaoke kind of line going on under,
Oh, that's fun.
during the episodes. You could sing along with the episodes.
My first job actually in the business was Bubblegum Crisis, and we actually had this rare, wonderful opportunity to redo all the music from scratch. So it wasn't dubbing the songs, but the, you know, a cappella track from Japanese M&E. We actually had to redo all the music from the ground up.
Wow.
And it was cool. They were going to have a Get On Record company, which was the evil company in the show, and release everything. And then there was some issue between the licensor and the studio and all those things, and it never got released. But we got to do it all, and it's in the show. So, and I got to play one of the songs. I play guitar, and my favorite song in the show was Rock Me at the end of episode 5 or 6. It's like a post-credit song. And I got to play it, and it was really fun. So I got to rock out the studio, and then years later, I was in Japan, and I'm friends with the producer at AIC. AIC? Yeah. And I was introduced to one of the directors of Bubblegum Crisis, and I was like, oh, it's a really honor to meet you. I love the show very much. It's the first thing I worked on in the industry in '94. Who wasn't born yet? Wow. And I said, oh, and I got to play lead guitar on the song Rock Me. And he goes, soul. And then out of nowhere, as if from his butt, he pulls a guitar. And I was like, and he goes, hey. And I was like, whoa. And this has been like 15 years, you know, at this point. And I'm like, oh, it was somewhere in there. And then I remember the head of the song and played like a verse. And he was like, And then I was like, oh my God, what the heck just happened? Yeah. But doing the music from scratch was really cool, and having to find singers who sound like that, and it's all part of the show, because one of the main lightsabers is, of course, Chris Asagiri, and she is a rocker.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with a cell from Bubblegum Crash, which was her in the studio singing Catch Me, and in the back there's an engineer who looks kind of like me, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a cell about my life. I spent 2 years of my life recording Chris, and there's a cell in it. I gotta buy this cell, and it hangs in my studio. When you walk in the front door, you see the cell of me recording Chris. That's not really me, it's a cell from the end. Oh my God. You still got to.
Why don't you pick it? Or pick it.
Perfect. Who hasn't asked a question yet? In the white.
Is it a different experience when you're working on an anime, either as the director or the writer, when the manga series is ongoing and you're working on just a short segment of it, like in The Wallflower or on High School? Like when the series keeps going and you're only getting to direct a certain portion of it, but you have to develop it entirely for it to be its own freestanding series.
I feel, sorry. When there is a manga that can be used like for research.
What are you talking about?
Oh, you can go. Come on.
Okay, talk free. Yes, it's a toll.
Fuzzy.
I feel that while I should look at the manga as my greatest asset for research, I actually like to not look at it at all because I'm not telling the manga story.
Right.
I'm telling the anime story. And even if they stick very closely together, there are going to be some discrepancies. So all I can do is stick with just the anime. And I know that the manga exists if for some reason I'm like, does this character have a name? How am I going to find their name? Or maybe in the manga. You know, that kind of thing. But I knew, like, I love Oran. And at the time working on the anime, the manga was still ongoing, it hadn't ended. But I didn't want to look at it. And once I did, I think, look at like the first volume, and it's different in that the episodes and the parts are kind of jumbled around, and it changes the way that the audience is going to learn about the character. And I didn't want to mess with it.
Yeah, there's two different mediums.
Yeah, I just
One-
stick with what the anime gives me, and the manga is there if I need it. Or I can go and talk to the brand manager, which is basically like the head of all of marketing for that,
Yeah,
and
sure.
they know everything about it also.
See,
So I could go and say like, I have a question, and don't tell me anything I don't need to know. Well, what does this mean? And then I say, oh, well, in the manga it's this. Okay, thank you.
See, I lucked out on Wallflower because Shinichi Watanabe and I are very, very good friends. And we go up to each other all the time. So if I'm working on one of his shows and I have a problem, I just go, Naoshi, what do you mean by this? And, or what is this? Does this tie into something that I need to know from the manga? And he's very, I mean, within a day, we go through a translator, and he writes back and says, oh, no, just make a move joke. And, or Naoshi is always, just make sure they laugh. Just please make sure they laugh. So,
I worked on a show. I directed just like an OVA thing called Alien 9. Anybody seen that? Alien 9 is really good.
You mean Alien Face Now?
Yes, exactly. And Michael was in it. And you had a beard. You're the DVD extras with a beard.
Oh, yeah.
And that there, was based on a manga, and the manga actually goes further than the OVA, and because they had talked about making, keeping going with the story. So with that, it was actually helpful to see where things were going. As Caitlin said, it was sort of as research for there if I need it. Telling the story of the anime, but there were certain things that they hinted at that were going to happen in the next installment. And that was really helpful to be able to look that up and understand, I see, okay. But I do highly recommend that series. It's creepy as hell and really neat.
I actually do have a quick question. This is something I've been doing on my directing panels for like the last five or six conventions. I picked it up from another director. Because like we said,
What
we
other
always.
directors are there?
That's very true.
Just being Mexican fields.
But no, actually, I didn't get this from Matt. But you had said earlier, or one of you had said earlier, that we do steal from others that stuff at work. What is something that you use in the studio? One of your tricks that you use in the studio?
What's a trick?
A trick or something that you use that it's like, wow, I don't remember anybody else has ever thought to do this or something.
Flattery? No.
I'm just curious.
One of the things that I got from college from a speech class was we would take a cork in and do any vocal warm-ups with a cork in our mouth. It does a couple things. It overworks your articulators. It reconnects you to your support, like diaphragm breathing support system. And if you're stuck in a rut sometimes, it gets you out of your head. So I use that with many people. A lot of children that I'm directing now on a new Peter Rabbit series for Nickelodeon that our good friend Kirk Thornton is in. I actually used it with Iron Chef Morimoto, and he actually came in to record the Iron Chef America game and was like, and the producer had written him the most verbose paragraphs of things to say because she just thought he was smart. And then she was like, stupid, 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 he barely speaks English, why did I do that? And he actually said at one point, English on show is not my own, and people think I speak good English. No. So, at one point, I was like, hey, try this thing. I had him put two knuckles in his mouth and speak through his knuckles, and the producers were like, what are you making him do? I was like, and then he got through a paragraph, one take, no problems, it was amazing, and they were like, wow. Then he looked at me and went, like he was surprised at himself, so we kept doing it. I did that with a number of people, usually people who are grown-ups and are not as into it. I stick my hand in my mouth, what are you telling me to do? The kids are all over it, and it really helps them when they have really tricky things. And Peter Rabbit is actually pretty tricky and verbose, and a lot of turns within the line. But I use it sometimes not just for articulators, but for getting them out of their rut when they're inflecting up at the end of everything, and they just can't not. Matthew Modine, I directed him on something, and I actually ended up having him do it. He was totally game, and he was very, very cool. And then afterwards, he actually, after the session, asked me if I would help him with an audition he had for some, like, I don't know, Lexus or some car thing.
Sweet.
And we hung around and said, we'll do the knuckles again. And I was like, you know what, for this one, actually, yeah. And at that point, it wasn't articulation. It was, he's got a really nice baritone when he can get to it, but, he's Joker from Full Metal Jacket, or, they're in a million movies, but he's got a higher voice, so to have him connect to his commercials, it kind of worked, actually.
That's very cool.
Knuckles in your mouth.
I'm still thinking.
Well,
something that's real tied to what Mike said, working on a project and I was actually acting, and the director gave me this trick. And it's very similar to the Knuckles. I could not pronounce this set of words together. Some words, you know, writers don't always speak the words aloud when they write. And so...
And they never speak it with your mouth.
Yeah. And so sometimes you get dialogue that is nearly impossible to say. And so I had this dialogue and I could not get it out, And the director said, say it once, holding your tongue. And so if you hold the tongue and say the dialogue and then you release, you have all this freedom and you rip right through it. That was one thing. I had another thing in my head, another trick. What other trick was there? It's
Do you guys know this little key thing? I caught that from Allison not long ago.
What?
Yeah, the whisk or even a Sharpie or
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's always that. Yeah, to stop pee pops.
Yeah.
Fingers.
It'll just split the sound.
That is.
Yeah.
But the one that I just caught out, I'll come back to you. Matt Greenfield, the show that I'm working on has a ton of older female actresses. And they're all bit parts, they're all tiny roles. And I was like, oh my God, we've only got 2 or 3 really strong, older females, like 60 plus females. And I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? And Matt said, look, have the actress come in and alter just the quality of her voice slightly. And then pitch it down by 2, which is like pitching it down a full step. Because as women age, their voice lowers. And I did that at one point in the show with Lucy Christian. I did it with Tiffany Grant, with Allison Keith.
They're all over 60 by now.
they're all much younger than 60. None of them sound like themselves. And it's just, and I needed a couple of small bit parts. And I was like, boom, and we got to the point where it just became a machine with my jersey. Pitch it down to, yeah, right, boom. You could not tell it was them. I would never have thought, I mean, I've used pitch tool on stuff before, but I never thought to use it to age women.
Now you made me think of mine. And this is not a trick that I have used on an actor before, but Zach Bolton, who directs Shin Chan and all kinds of things, Soul Eater.
Oh yeah.
I was in once doing some Shin Chan and I finished my stuff and we had tons of time. So much. So he was like, let's just fill you in with these random bits. So you play this little boy, play this Australian, play this, okay? All right. And then we're running out of things for me to do, but we want to keep playing, basically. So there's this scene where there's a really big lady in a fitting room or something like that. And somebody, like Shin or his dad, walks in on this woman and she gets really angry and starts yelling, oh, we need a big woman. Like Amazon, everything about her is big. And I'm like, you want me to do that? And I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm like, I don't know how to do that kind of voice. Because we kind of get that way as actors. We can either be excited about this new opportunity or terrified about it. Like, oh dear, how am I going to make a voice for that? So what they did was they pitched my voice up a lot, but only so I could hear it, like in my headphones. I think maybe in one ear, maybe 2. So when I would speak in my ears, it was really high. And they said, do your best to make what you're hearing sound like your normal voice. So I'm like, okay. And it took a while for me to get used to it, but eventually I was like pushing my voice down and I couldn't hear. Because when you try and make yourself sound lower in your woman, you feel really dumb. So this, I couldn't notice at all. I was just trying to stop sounding like Minnie Mouse. And once I sounded like Caitlin again, and they played it back for me. I'm like, who is that? It sounded like absolutely not a sound of it was anything that I recognized as my own voice.
Yeah.
It was rad.
Yeah, on Wallflower, we had to have this ghost and Sinatra talk at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that we wanted kind of a Jeffrey Rush feel. We wanted everything right here for the lady. And I was going to go with John Swayze because John can knock that out in a heartbeat. And my engineer was playing around. We had Anna Alcorn. She was going to lay down the tracks versus Sinatra. And I said, yeah, we need her with kind of an Irish flow. And she did. She actually did a fairly strong Irish. And The engineer said, hold on a second, I just got to try something. And he pitched her all the way down. Well, all of a sudden, it was the slow. And I went, wait a minute. Copy that and put her track on top of it. We use Swayze for other stuff. That higher is actually the actress who plays Sinako, completely pitched down and works beautifully. And that was just the engineer. Sometimes you get the best stuff with an engineer playing around.
Well, the trick stuff that I've done before, it's often, you know, when you're in the booth, you're by yourself, okay? And depending on which point in the process you go, if you're the first person to go, there's no one else, you're not even gonna hear anybody else. And, you know, you're reading lines from the script. These aren't things that you're given, you know, I'd say vastly more often than not, you don't get the script to take home and you're not memorizing your stuff. So sometimes, you know, people get stuck in a rut like actors, and it sounds like they're reading, you know? And anybody ever seen the movie Tootsie?
Yes.
You know, Dustin Hoffman is like an acting, he's also like an acting coach, in addition to being an actor in that. And there's a lot of little tricks that he does in that. And one of the things he's like, on a completely unrelated thing, he's talking to Jessica Lange, who's having trouble with the scene. He's like, I'm gonna ask you a question, just answer it, okay? And he asks her a question, she answers. You know, it's just very natural. So, you know, and it's like, and then he'll talk to her like that. And then when she goes back to the script and does the line, it comes out so much more naturally. You know, that it's just, you don't know what the question is going to be. You don't know what your answer is going to be until you say it, you know, as the character. So trying to get people to relax like that. And another thing is sometimes actors will get too caught up with the sync, especially if it's kind of funky and they'll, you know, and then sometimes with that, I'll turn off the TV and be like, let's just do this, you know, and just so they're not caught up by that. And I'll have myself on the back here. I'm a good editor, so I'll make, if you're giving me good reads, you know, and with Pokemon in particular, like, the script is adapted very well, so we can almost do like entire episodes with the TV off because it's gonna lock in, you know? So that way, like, don't worry about the flap. That's the last thing I want the actor to sweat, you know? Worry about, you're the character, worry about, you know, playing this character. I'll worry about the technical stuff. And if I need to give you a little tech note, fine. Otherwise, don't even think about it. Yes, just act, you know.
You had one more that you were trying to think of.
Just there was just one last. There's a trick. Some people have trouble laughing on cue, and just one quick trick, because most people would think, oh, I've got to laugh. I got to get a big lung full of air. Ha 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 ha! No, blow out half your air before you laugh. It comes out much more natural.
I have another trick for that. Peter Rabbit, the kid who plays Benjamin, he's not a great natural laugher. So his mom comes in the booth and tases him. She's like jab.
Yes. And 3 hours later when he wakes up, like, this time you're gonna laugh right.
But that didn't really work on our part. No.
I've had to do that with Henry, because Henry, my older son, you know, the 9-year-old who's with me here, he does stuff for me sometimes, and he works for the Turkish stuff.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, and with that sometimes it's like, you know, if you can't, and the big laughs for him are easier. It's the little ones that, you know, that can be tough, but sometimes you just kind of, you know.
Yeah, and then Matthew Modine responded really well to the tickling.
Nice. Well, then, you know, even, I don't know, were you in the thing that the boy who wanted to be a bear, that Danish movie? Okay, but that, I collected like laugh bags for these children that I just in case I needed to kind of, you know, go in for that. But Veronica Taylor's daughter was in that when she was 5.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. She's, oh my God, she was just so perfect and natural, and she had this great little list because she was missing her front teeth. And it was, you know, it was awesome. Yeah, and I thought for certain that I'm like, oh, would you want to be this? And after that, she's like, no, that was fun, but I don't want to do it anymore. But now she's getting back into it, I think. And she's like 13.
13, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I remember when she broke my remote control tank in my studio.
She's like as tall as I am.
That's crazy, Tom.
Yeah. By the way, I do need to call this out. Are you cosplaying as Chris Sabat? No, Just anyway, sorry.
We got 5 minutes.
Let's do like a lightning round.
Yeah, lightning questions.
Lightning round, something that we can answer.
Answer in like 1 or 2 words.
All right, video games and.
I know you've asked, you had your question. Somebody else, purple hair.
Are you Leela?
No, that's not Folklore.
Oh, whoops. Saw the one eye.
What was your favorite anime to direct?
Tom.
Favorite anime to direct. All right, wait, we'll get there.
Lightning round.
Kakarendo. Starring him. No. Check it out. Creepy.
I loved all of the Aaron and Daikon brothers. This is just so silly.
I love Aaron and Daikon.
Me, it wasn't a big title, but Scribe, because I had I had Bloom and a bunch of great actors.
Or on High School Musical.
Yeah.
The last volume 5 of Gundam Unicorn, which is simultaneously released and therefore very, very difficult. But if you have like butter, I don't even know why. It's incredible. I feel like Superman.
Hey,
Hey,
lightning questions. Cody.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
I'm an English major, and I'm sure you guys have all the time, but what are some like recommendations on how to get started into like storytelling for TV?
Can you, like, Writers Guild internships, you know, things like that. And who you know is very important, and hook up with other like-minded creative people. Something that Mr. Sinterniklaas had always said, that a lot of us who do this sort of thing, people can look at us, we can look at each other like we're competition, but we're colleagues also.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, hooking up with like-minded people, you can do a lot for each other. So, you know.
I got that.
I got nothing.
Me? You.
Do you have any recommendation for training for directing?
Well,
Training for directing, what do you recommend for that?
Oh.
Training.
it's definitely, I think, something that I couldn't start training to do until I already worked at Funimation. You can't like go to school, like you can learn how to do like ADR, like looping type directing,
Yeah.
but like I went to school and I learned theater directing and how to talk to actors.
Yeah, it's all about communication.
That's really, it's
Yeah,
about
it really is. It's all
communication.
about communication.
And if you do want to get into doing cartoons, animation, understanding the tech side of the process, I think is extremely helpful.
Yes.
So, and that's something that you
Yeah.
can learn from class, Pro Tools, etc.
Back there, way back in the back.
The anime Alien 9 stars Veronica Taylor does voices on it.
Yes.
And there's a scene where she used to voice Ash Ketchum, Pokemon. There's a scene where she says in Ash's voice, "You gotta catch him all."
I know.
Can you talk about that?
I was just like, "Okay, say this," and she's like, "I'm not supposed to." I'm like, "But can you?" And she's like, "Okay." So, but that was it. I mean, I just, you know, because there's an aspect of that show that is like Pokemon on acid. These little, you know, their little partner alien helmets that kill. So, you know, when I put her in that, I was just like, "Can you just do this as sort of an in-joke?" And she did.
I know it's there.
This is for Mr. Sinterniklaas. You said you did local presence, which is local Carolina, right?
It was Southwood Studios.
Have you ever worked with Coastal Carolina?
Yeah, I'm friends with Scott Gould, and he's a wonderful man, does great work, and I did one thing with him. There was one thing that I really wanted to do. Oh, actually it was Beldandy and Keiji.
Oh my God.
And Oh My Goddess, yeah. But it's a good thing. I was approached about doing it. I couldn't because I was busy doing something at that other studio. And it's a good thing because it ended up being a real world couple, Juliet Cesario and Scott Simpson. So that was cool. But I did some smaller things over there with Scott. Scott's awesome.
And our liaisons are standing up, so I think that means it's time.
Thank you guys very much for coming.
Thank you guys.
I'm sorry, guys, no autographs, no approach from the table. We need to clear the room because Greg Ayres' panel is in here right after this is done. So if you'd like to stay seated for It Gets Better, please do. Otherwise, we need you to clear the room, please. Thank you so much.